ATP, what it do with your boy Clay More Rain, back at you guys with another one. Yeah, shout out to all my subscribers. Man, so much love and respect for you guys. Thank you so much for supporting this channel and helping this channel grow a little bit more every single day, man. I appreciate all the engagement, all the positive comments, even the negative ones from time to time. I appreciate you guys, man. Look, if this is your first time tapping into this content, I'm going to invite you, like I do everybody else who's subscribed to this channel before. I'm going to invite you as well to go ahead and subscribe to the channel, man. Hit your like buttons, hit your bell icons as well, right? Hit the like buttons though, you know. Like or dislike, doesn't matter, man. I appreciate the engagement. But if you are subscribing for the first time, make sure you hit those bell icons so you are getting alerts when all this content is dropping. So Jaron Boots Ennis, let's get to the meat. Pause. Right? Let's get to the actual the actual reason for this video right here. Jaron Boots Ennis, like I've told you guys, if you've been keeping up with me on my lives, if you've been keeping up with me on Blue Blood Sports TV channel, you already know my perspective on this Jaron Boots Ennis situation and what we all, after I've spoken about it, knew we were going to go into, right? Jaron Boots Ennis in a situation where he has opportunity all over the place and he has decisions to make, without a doubt. Now, we know Jaron Boots Ennis coming off of 2 performances where people are just, in my personal opinion, seeing what it looks like to have a fighter who's not interested or not as psyched up to fight the opponents he's going to fight, right? He's more so caught in a situation to where he's in a division right now, 147 pounds, where his only purpose in that division from him and his father's perspective is to become a unified champion, ultimately an undisputed champion. And you guys should know the story by now that it's been more than difficult. That would even be an underrated statement to say how it's been for Jaron Boots Ennis to get in these conversations and actually manifest these conversations into actual matchups. So of course, me being the great boxing fan that I am, and I'm a decent content creator, right? I've been pushing for Jaron Boots Ennis to move to 154 pounds. And look, I've been on this topic for well over a year now, right? Well, maybe not over a year. I'd say about a year. Let's say about a year, give or take a year. I've been on this topic because, listen, these fighters have a small window to make these things happen for themselves. And I'm talking about when they're athletically at their prime, where they're ultimately at their perfect place in their career, to when they want to make the biggest fights possible, because it's the best physical version of themselves that they have to achieve these goals, right? So I've always felt the pressure for Jaron Boots Ennis. If you guys have seen Jaron Boots Ennis, you know he's a pretty decent size 147 pounder, one of the bigger 147 pounders. A young guy, but not so young, right? Getting ready to be 28 years old. Jaron Boots Ennis has a lot of legacy ahead of him, but at the same time, he has legacy right in his present situation that him and his father have focused on. They don't want the industry to put pressure on them to move before they want to move. They want to, and they've communicated this multiple times, they want to unify the division they're in at 147 pounds, become undisputed champions, and they want to move up to 154 pounds and do the same thing. You know, do what the greats have been doing in this era, like Terrence Crawford, like Monster Inoue, like Clarissa Shields, right? They want to become 2 weight class undisputed champions. And it starts off where they're at 147 pounds. But I digress to get back to the fact that I've been one of the main people campaigning for Jaron Boots Ennis to take strong consideration into moving to 154 pounds to compete up there in that hornet nest of talent and one of the most competitive divisions in the whole entire boxing space, 154 pounds. Home of Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, Sebastian Fundora, right? Bakram Murtala Zayev, I hope I said his name correctly, right? All the way into the Virgil Ortizes, obviously, Brian Mendoza, right? You guys know the names, Erickson Lubin, Jermell Charlo. This division is just jumping. And all it probably is missing at this point is Jaron Boots Ennis. But look, I was saying that, taking into consideration that these other fighters in the division just simply seemed like they weren't interested in fighting Jaron Boots Ennis. And one thing about being a champion in this division, guys, is, and in boxing period, is once you get that belt, you fall out of the ranking structure. So your ability to activate mandatories and things like that in order to make the fight you want to make, it goes away from you. These champions can avoid each other in a very legitimate way just by operating on defending against the mandatories and fighting against people that are in their sanctioned bodies. They have no true obligation to make these fights come full circle. And Jaron Ennis is in a very complicated situation when it comes to that, because he's a high-risk fighter, right? We're talking about a guy with 33 wins, 29 knockouts, some kind of record like that, right? This kid is just a phenom. Now, his last two performances, you've seen him just be a little bit bored, right? Try to entertain the crowd, try to really showcase his talents, to build up his market value and build up his fan base. But ultimately, during that path and during that journey, Jaron Ennis has shown some people might want to say some holes in his game, where people feel like he's being exposed, or they want to call him a hype job and things of that nature. So he's been getting hit a little bit more than we used to seeing him get hit. And now there's a bad and a good side to what we're seeing happening to him, right? Because in the midst of this happening, and in the midst of him becoming what I like to call human, right? His superpowers have been exposed. He's really not Superman. This God bleeds, right? The God bleeds. And now the opponents who were once very silent, very quiet, and very indifferent with the idea of fighting Jaron Boots Ennis have now come out the bushes, come out the woodworks, and they've all had their own little lines to speak. You have Mario Barrios, who's now become a little more vocal about fighting Jaron Boots Ennis. You have Brian Norman Sr., who sees opportunities for his son, Brian Norman Jr., to take advantage of Jaron Boots Ennis, right? The champions are saying his name. The division is bubbling. And at the same exact time, we have the return of Conor Benn, who's coming off of a suspension, right, for using PEDs. Now, supposedly that's been cleared. He's been found innocent of it, but that's not what we're here to discuss, right? But Conor Benn is a big name out in Europe, one of the biggest names in the UK, to be honest with you. And he wants to come inside of the 147-pound division. And he wants to challenge, from what I understand, Eddie Hearn is trying to put together something between him and Mario Barrios for that WBC title. Now, obviously, if Conor Benn were able to achieve a victory in that fight and get that title, that poses to be a great big fight that Eddie Hearn can make in-house, to have Conor Benn fighting against Jaron Boots Ennis, maybe in the UK or maybe in Philadelphia, who knows, right? But it seems like there's opportunities that are growing out of the 147-pound division. And although there's a huge opportunity ahead of him at 154 pounds, as Turki Al-Sheikh has also gotten into the conversation and shown interest in matching Jaron Boots Ennis against some real hitters at 154 pounds. And obviously, you know, when Turki Al-Sheikh gets involved in the conversation, not only does the matchmaking come into play, but obviously these fighters' biggest paydays come into play. So Jaron Boots Ennis has a lot of opportunities and a lot of decisions to make and a lot of things to weigh out at the present moment. Well, the new and present moment situation with Jaron Boots Ennis is that after coming off of what some people want to call a lackluster performance against Karen Kugajajin, he was confronted with an issue of what is his next step going to be. And it looks like him and his team came to the understanding and conclusion that he needs fighters and the matchups that are going to make him step up, something that's going to make him get up in the morning, train hard, and pose a little bit of danger, a higher level of competition that he doesn't seem like he's getting at 147 pounds. So with that being said, Jaron Boots Ennis communicated in that post-fight press conference that he looks like he may have to consider 154 pounds. Because at the end of the day, if he's not getting the unification title fights and those fights that he's looking for at 147 pounds, not only is he wasting his time, but he's also growing. He's not making the money he should be making. And he's also holding a very unique belt in the IBF welterweight championship, right? And that IBF title requires a rehydration clause. It basically requires that Jaron Boots Ennis stay within 10 pounds of his weight class, of the weight limit on the day of the fight, right? He's not allowed, or the morning of the fight, he has to actually weigh out no more than 10 pounds over the weight class. So to put some perspective in it, if he was a WBC champion, he would only be required to make that 147 pounds on the weigh-in the day before, and then he could rehydrate to whatever he naturally could rehydrate to the next day and be as healthy and as strong as possible. Whereas the IBF, although he makes the weight on the day of the fight, the day before the fight, the day of the fight, the morning of, he still has to be responsible to stay inside of 10 pounds, which means what? He has to pay attention to his liquid intake, his food intake. He's still under those restrictions and therefore risking being a little depleted during the fight. Now, it looks like he was trying to credit the performance he had with Karen Kukujajin to maybe him not being as strong as he could be. So he showed to the public that, maybe the weight cut was getting to be a little bit too much for him. But when he's fighting unification title fights, Jaron doesn't have to fall under that, right? He doesn't have to do the rehydration clause. The rules kind of go out the way. He gets to be a stronger fighter. And of course, he gets to go ahead and chase legacy. Now, earlier today, rumors coming out that Jaron Boots Ennis, who had a fight that he was supposedly in negotiations with Virgil Ortiz to fight at 154 pounds, seemed to get some news out there that he may have passed up on that fight and decided to go ahead and stay in the 147-pound division, to where all of a sudden it looks like there's a lot of opportunity in there, right? So the social media space has been reacting crazy to it. You've got content creators who are officially calling him a duck, and making all kind of videos. The fans are being ruthless, and for what? Because at the end of the day, there's excitement. There's excitement that's building up. People really want to see Jaron Boots Ennis at 154 pounds. This content creator especially, right? I've been campaigning to see him move to 154. But is Jaron Boots Ennis ducking Virgil Ortiz in all reality if he stays at 147 pounds? Or is he just committing to the division he's already in and trying to go ahead and accomplish legacy goals? These fighters have a small window of opportunity to make as much money as they can, but also to achieve as much legacy as they can. And some fighters are just more magnetized or attracted to the legacy part of the conversation. And Jaron Boots Ennis happens to be one of those fighters. Him and his father, Bozy Ennis, very committed to accomplishing legacy, because at the end of the day, the money comes, the money goes, but the legacy lives on generation after generation. This is what they recognize you for when they put you in the Hall of Fame. This is what fighters like Jaron Boots Ennis hold and stay true to. So let's look what Jaron Ennis said, right? So he said, "I've seen rumors on social media, just like y'all did, as far as a fight with me and Virgil, and I was unaware that alleged negotiations were being made on my end from here on out. If it didn't come from me and me only, don't believe it. And I will address if I'm staying at 147 or moving up to 54 at a later date and time." This is Jaron Boots Ennis, right? Responding basically to the whole entire backlash he's getting from the whole entire social media space, as far as people judging him on the decisions that he's made, right? This is what he's responding with, which lets me know that right now nothing is written in stone yet, that the Virgil Ortiz fight is not off the table, but he's definitely still considering to be at 147 and competing on that space. Now, guys, I've gone through it with you. I've given you some perspective. Ryan Norman Sr. says that this is a fight that he plans on making his priority once he fights his mandatory that he has lined up, which I believe is sometime in February, March. That fight should be coming to fruition for him. So Boots might have some opportunities, but Boots also has some real decisions to make, because nothing is promised. There are no guarantees in life. And at this point, staying at 147 for as long as he has, the opportunity for him to become undisputed or unify the belts have been there, right? And now he has even more opportunities showing up in front of him at 154. The space is getting thirsty to see Boots compete in that hornet's nest. A lot of people think he's going to do great. A lot of people think he's a hype train and he's going to get exposed. But either way, with the backing of Turki Al-Sheikh, with all of the mysterious energy around him right now, with people who are doubting him and people who are rooting him on, it seems like it's a prime time to strike while the iron's hot for Jaron Boots Ennis to go ahead and leave 147 pounds alone, put that in his rearview mirror, and look forward to the legacy that sits in front of him at 154 pounds. There's legacy there. There's money there. There's activity there. All the boxes get checked at 154. Now, does he become a two-weight class undisputed champion going into this weight class with an undisputed title from 147? Well, probably not, right? At best, I think Boots Ennis is probably looking at unifying in that division before he probably runs into a couple walls again. Now, there's money to be made in that division, and him and Eddie Al-Sheikh, him and Eddie Hearn's relationship is going to be coming back to the negotiation table soon, as Boots' fights are pretty much, I think he did like a 3 to 4 fight deal with Eddie Hearns, and he's coming to the end of that, right? So he'll be renegotiating and revisiting the whole entire matchroom relationship, which, to be honest with you, I could see him signing another contract with him, right? Eddie Hearn doesn't only provide Boots with management and promoting him, he also provides Boots with an opportunity to have his own promotional company in Boots Promotions, where he has fighters like Khalil Cole on there and a plethora of other fighters that come from out of his gym out in Philadelphia. So it's a great partnership for him. It's a great look for him. It's a way for him to facilitate fights for his fighters as well, to put them on huge cards that he could headline. There's a lot of opportunity sitting there with him in Matchroom. But at the end of the day, the most important thing, and the thing we're talking about right now, is Boots Ennis' future. And it's his past drown out his future if he makes the wrong decision today. There's a lot of big decisions on the table as the whole entire space is responding. I mean, just look with Twitter. Look what's going on here in Twitter, right? Look how the people are responding to him. Wacky 300, all the duck signs. You even have Tim Bradley, who's spoken on it, saying it's duck soup. They're not appreciating Boots hanging on to 147. He'll get bittersweet, shooketh of Virgil Ortiz. We'll call you slippers from now on. Quack, quack. You see what's in there. Come on, Boots, with a little bit of a meme there of Canelo Alvarez. Listen, man, it is what it is. You guys can read down all of the responses. This is directly on Boots' Twitter account right now, and you have to ask yourself, and you got to wonder if Boots is asking himself, is this all worth it at this point? Is it worth it to get all of this ridicule at this point, to stay inside of a division where you're not even promised to unify, just with a little bit of interest sparked by people who may be talking for nothing on social media, as far as the other fighters acting as if they're going to give you an opportunity to become a champion, a unified champion? Is that enough to hold you away from what's in front of you? An active, a 154-pound division with an ambassador of a country having a special interest in giving you a lot of money to compete in that division. What's it going to be? Well, time will tell that story better than any of us can tell it. Like I always say, hindsight is always 20/20. Foresight can be like more like 100 over 20. I don't know. You know what I'm saying, how that works. We could always try to predict the future, but none of us have mastered doing it. Hindsight will always be 20/20, but hindsight usually means it's already happened. Boots Ennis has some real important decisions to make, some real consideration to take into what's in front of him, what Eddie Hearn actually has for him on the table as far as opportunity is concerned. He may have to look at the bigger picture and realize that this is a marathon, not a race. Or then again, he may choose to give 147 one more shot, but he might be doing it alone this time, as the boxing space seems to be pushing away and pulling away from the idea of Boots becoming an undisputed champion at 147, and is more so embracing the idea of him competing at 154. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. Interesting day. Is Boots a duck? Is Boots just conflicted with a lot of decisions to be made? Where does Boots go on right now? Are you okay with Boots hanging back at 147 to chase undisputed still? Or are you ready to see him move forward? I'll be interested in reading it in the comments. Once again, thank you to all my subscribers on this channel. If this is your first time tapping into content, like I said in the beginning, I'm going to invite you to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Hit your bell icons as well, so you are getting alerts when all this content is dropping. It's your boy Rain. It's that ATB Combat Media Show. And at this point, we out.